success is very different. It's about time, I suppose. It's about helping other people. It's about doing something different in the world and helping businesses. I suppose I grew up in Northern Ireland in the 80s, height of the Troubles. I never thought of it as Catholic or Protestant. They were just people. And I think that's what people need to kind of remember. Everyone is, just a person, right? Whether you're Catholic, Protestant, gay, straight, trans, whatever, you're just a person. I think that's really important. When I'm working with any business, as a small business, you need to have those processes in place before you bring someone in. It's super, super important. What are your values? What are your processes? How do you nourish your customers? Otherwise, there's a disconnect. And that's why people fall out and things don't often work. And I think that's the most important thing in business. Don't be selling to people in the first thing, and I say that to everyone as well. People try to sell, but it's about what is the process. You don't need to be the richest person in the world. But the biggest thing is do the things that you love. And for me, measuring success is the success of others. Time is the biggest commodity in the world. It's the most richest currency you can ever have. You can lose all the money in the world, you can get it back, but you can't get back time.
I'm on a mission to help the world to see success differently. We're sharing the stories of our guests. I hope to inspire those that listen. This is the Different Hats podcast, produced by H2 Productions. I hope you can join us on this journey. Okay, I just wanted to say something about one of our sponsors, Search 7. They are a search marketing agency for social good. They elevate brands' online exposure locally, nationally and globally through strategic SEO and paid media consultancy. They specialise in many different sectors, including charities, e-commerce, travel, health and medical education, and professional and creative services. They also give agencies and charities the exposure they deserve via their hosted agency and charity events, helping to build community and connections. Their pledge is the inspiration behind their name. Since they started in 2011, they have pledged to give back 7% of their profits to charity. This has become a minimum of 7% each year, with their current fundraising surpassing £150,000 in support of 63 charities. Their latest campaign, #Share177k, aims to raise £177,000 by the end of 2026 to mark their 15th birthday. It's a pleasure to have them as part of the Series 7 of the podcast. I'm delighted. Thanks so much for your support.
Okay, welcome.
Hello.
Mr. Gary Salters, how are you?
Good, you?
Yeah, mate, very well, very well. I've been excited about getting you on for a while. I know we've talked about it for about last year, right? And a bit of delay with the 100th episode, but it's great to finally get you on, mate. So
Exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. Well, look, let's. I'm going to jump straight in. Obviously, with Series 7, we've gone straight for the whole essence of the podcast is how we define success. Your business is called Go Succeed, right? Which kicked off obviously in 2021. But talk to me. What does success mean to you? How do you define it?
I suppose that's changed over the years.
Okay.
So when I started out in my career, success was all about getting a job, getting promoted, just spending all your time creating loads of money, whereas now success is very different. It's about time, I suppose. It's about helping other people. It's about doing something different in the world and helping businesses.
Love that. Because I think going back, I guess, for same with me, right, that when you start out any career or a business or whatever that looks like, society's definition of success is still the fame, wealth, social status, and everything. That's what we always seem to try. But I wonder whether it is it something that comes with as we get a bit older and we go through different experiences that changes, because it's more than, as you've just alluded to, I guess, purpose and time and the things that I guess that you contribute to the world, right?
And I think it is. I think because when you go to school, in school. All they teach you is about getting a good job, going to university, earning money. That's what school's all about, isn't it? That's what they teach you all the way through school. Success to them is having a job, having a house, having children, whatever it is. It's, but is that success? What does that define success? And I suppose that's changed me over the last 30 years. Because I was thinking today, I started my first job 30 years ago, 1995. Wow. So yeah.
What was that first job?
So my first job was part-time in McDonald's.
Okay.
So I worked at McDonald's part-time, and then I stayed there. So I joined that during A-levels, and then I stayed there, and I became a manager, and I did lots of different things. Went off to Pop Stars, the rivals with McDonald's, won loads of awards, run businesses in Belfast, worked for franchisees, and that was where I started my career for 8 years, was with McDonald's. I think that's where all my processes have come from.
Oh, really? Yeah, because I guess from as a franchise model, they've got that pretty much nailed on, right?
Yeah, and it's all about having processes, having a system in place to help you grow. And obviously people have different views of McDonald's and whatever. But I think for that, my foundations, give me the foundations of who I am today and how I work with businesses today.
Because I really want to delve into them processes as we go on a little bit, but while we're starting at that early start, I want to go back a little bit further. You mentioned about school and stuff. Talk to me. What do I need to know about Gabby Salters growing up, your childhood, to sort of shape the person that sits in front of us today?
Well, I suppose I grew up in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
In the 80s.
Yeah. Height
of the Troubles. And my parents, who I'm very proud of, sent me to an integrated school, a primary 2. So I remember my first... I went to a normal school, primary 1, and then primary 2 I went to an integrated school, Hazelwood Integrated College, with my mum, one of the founding parents, and my dad, and that was bringing Catholics and Protestants together. And the first place I went to, because they didn't have a school, was an office at the back of the co-op in Belfast.
Wow, okay.
So that was where Hazelwood started, and I went all the way through the school, right the way through to secondary school to A-level. So for me, I never really knew any different. So it was always about kind of hope and peace, and all of that was the whole, mantra of Hazelwood College. It was facta non verba, and it was just really actions, not words, was what the school was about, and that kind of probably shaped who I was. And I look back and I think, obviously, I'm gay, queer, LGBTQ, and I look back then, and I suppose that was really brave of my parents to do that in the early 80s, sending me to an integrated school, which was a bit probably mad, because Catholics were going to Catholic schools, Protestants were going to Protestant schools. They weren't mixing. But I think my mom and dad seen a future where you have to mix, because when you get out of school, you work with people, Catholic or Protestant. It doesn't really matter. So that's how my whole, my life started. So I had a really great childhood. My parents weren't super rich. They both just went to work, working class, went to work. But I think they seen that there had to be a change in Northern Ireland. And I think those types of things helped change Northern Ireland to where it is today, that the Good Friday Agreement in 1998, all of those things helped shape where Northern Ireland came from, really, because you need that. And integrated education is now the biggest education in Northern Ireland. And I think even today, the rest of the world could probably learn from some of those things, because I think there's a lot of division as well in the world. And I think it's just looking back, it was a really brilliant time for my parents to do that. Very brave. And
very open-minded of them as well to look at it in that sense, right? And like you said, I guess especially from all the trouble and everything that going on, like as you mentioned a couple of times, that brave side of it, just to take that and see. I guess like for me with my kids, I mean, look how lucky we are where we live, right, in Brighton, the most open-minded place. I've probably mentioned to you, a few times before. Obviously, I've got twins, and Lucy's gender fluid, so she was born a boy. So, but what a great place to grow up, to be able to go, and everything is you're welcome, and it's. I love the fact that we're probably on the best place on the planet, right? But I wonder, like me and Kelly have even spoke about it. What would it be like, even back in Essex? How different that would possibly be, like her upbringing compared to. But you go back to the 80s, and then.
And LGBTQ wasn't a thing in Northern Ireland. The thing was Catholic and Protestant. It was about this divide. It was about the Troubles. So it was really interesting, and I'm really happy that happened to me. So I went to the very first integrated primary school in Northern Ireland. One of the very first students, all the way through. So yeah, and it's still going today. And today they've got amazing schools with loads of funding, and I was never part of that. I was part of the we were in porta cabins and all sorts of things going through school, but it still shaped who I was, and I still loved every minute of it. Some of my best friends were Catholic. I never thought of it as Catholic or Protestant. They were just people, and I think that's what people need to kind of remember. Everyone is just a person, right? Whether you're Catholic, Protestant, gay, straight, trans, whatever, you're just a person. And I think that's really, really kind of important to remember. And we need to look back in history and think, actually, so that's why I'm really proud of what my parents did, sending me to an integrated school. All three of us went to Hazelwood all the way through.
That's such a, for me as well, that's such a beautiful message that we did as a society, as a country, as in the world, right? If everything we did, we looked at people just as human beings, because we, as much as the world's changed for the better, there's still so many problems there, and still archaic ways of thinking. Right? I think, like you said, I wonder whether. Do you feel like we almost? I guess. Again, I refer back to the twins, but I worry about are we in so much of a bubble here in Brighton?
We do,
and am I not preparing for the world outside? Just don't ever leave Brighton, I wonder what that looks like. Like, do we even have to go too far afield to see things maybe differently? But I guess for your mum and dad to have seen that at an early age, that we all should be treated as human beings. For them to have that vision is incredible.
Because I think that's who it shaped me. Because I've always been open. I've always been kind of. Whereas I could have had a very different life in Northern Ireland. In the heart of the Troubles, and people, growing up with that hatred and that divide. It was still very prominent in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, of course.
It was a big thing. The Troubles were still happening, bombings were still happening, in the 90s. So, it was a very brave thing to kind of, I never really seen that. Obviously, I've seen it on the news, but I never really was part of that because, my best friend was a guy called Julian in school. He was Catholic, I was Protestant, but I never seen that. Which is kind of amazing when I think back. I probably didn't really realise it at the time. It was just normal life for me. But when I look back, I think actually that shaped who I was, because you never really. That was the whole thing about Hazelwood. You didn't judge someone for what religion they were. You judged them for who they are. You became friends for who you are, and I think that shaped who I've become in later life. And I can only thank my parents for doing that. Because I could have had a very different experience, went to a regular school where there was, and it's not there was a bad thing, but that happens, isn't it? It's like school rivalries or whatever, that kind of ingrained in people. I'm Protestant, they're Catholic. All of that kind of rhetoric kind of breeds and breeds and breeds, and it took people to go out there and do it, because there was no funding, for it, And back then I think they couldn't even get anyone really to open the school. So who opened this first building that they had, which was in the Whitewell Road, which was a school that my mum went to, which was girls' school. Or my dad went to, it was the Whitewell Primary School before, and then it obviously closed down. But it was Barry McGuigan, the boxer, actually opened the school. I always remember that. So we moved from the co-op building to this old school that was kind of, done and derelict, and obviously they made it better, and that's where we moved, and then I went to the secondary school. Wow. So it's kind of and I remember it all really well, but in a good way. So I think it really shaped who I am as a person.
And what was you mentioned at the beginning, obviously, about school and where regarding success and the way the system is, and we're pushing. What was your experience? Like you mentioned, obviously, in the way it was a good experience for personal reasons and stuff like that. But how was you at school in general? Did you like the process and the learning and that type of thing? And
I suppose I was always someone that tried to do my best. I always strived to be the best. I was always that worried. Like I had to get the best grades. I know I didn't always get the best grades, but that was always a thing that was kind of ingrained in me, that I had to study, I had to do the best. And there is a lot of people in this world here, I think, that are gifted, and some people get things really easily. I'm not one of those people. I have to really kind of study hard and do really well. to get where I want to be, So I wasn't the smartest person in my class, but I did try hard. And it was kind of that whole thing was try hard and was kind of, go to university and do all of those things. And I didn't go to university because then I got this job at McDonald's part-time while I was, doing my A-levels. And then I decided that was the career that I wanted to do. And I became the youngest salary manager in the United Kingdom. Went to London, at 18, off to the Hamburger University, which it was called then, not anymore. But they taught a lot, they really invested in their people, and it was, when I think back, it was a great time, and it kind of shaped who I was, because that was, something that, it was different for me, I suppose, as well, and getting to meet different people as well.
And even that, though, is quite like 18 to come to London, right? On
yeah,
your own and come and
from
go
Northern Ireland,
yeah.
From this world where I didn't know anything, going off to London on my own and doing all of those things, and it was a very weird time. And they used to, when I was a salary manager, I always remember you arrived there and they brought people from all over the UK that was becoming a salary manager. It was a big thing in McDonald's, so you had your uniform, you had your star. I don't know if you remember. I don't think you had your stars. You had your 5 stars. So you had your yellow badge and you were a 5-star. Then you had your white badge and you were a training squad. Then you became a floor manager and you wore a blue shirt with a tie.
Okay.
And then you became a shift running floor manager, so you could be in charge of the shift. You'd be the person in charge. There'd be no one else there. So because it's open so many hours. Yeah. So you became that, and then you became a salary manager when you got a white shirt, and that was like the privilege, because you were salaried, you weren't already paid then, and I think back then, when I became a salary manager, I was earning 15 grand, and that was I was 18 in 1997. That was a lot of money in Northern Ireland.
Absolutely,
and going across to London and living the dream, and then working my whole way up to running a restaurant. So I worked for a franchisee, then I worked for McDonald's, the corporation where they had owned restaurants themselves. So kind of, that was it. Back then, I know it seems crazy, but I was there for 8 years. People used to say, Gary, you've got ketchup in your veins, because that was this is life, right? I was all in. When I do something, I'm all in. I really wanted to promote it. I really wanted that white shirt. And I suppose that's, as you say, going back to defining success. For me, that was, oh, wow, this is what I want. I want to have that white shirt. I want to be a restaurant manager. That's where I want to go. For me, that was success. I was never there. People came to McDonald's, and, I worked with lots of people who came. It was just a part-time job. For me, I loved it. I loved the processes. I loved the business. I loved that, how they grew the business, and then learning about how they decide where to put restaurants, and all of that was really kind of really interesting to me, because I always had that kind of entrepreneur thing. And I always said I wanted to be a franchisee or have my own franchise of some sort, all the way back then. I always did. Yeah, I always had that. I always remember standing in the drive-thru, in the window, serving cars, thinking,
But where I'm really keen to that entrepreneurial spark then. Did that ignite in you during the McDonald's period, or do you think it was before then? Because I listen to a couple of things I want to delve into that. At that young age and having that drive and ambition, is that come from from your mum and dad, I guess, giving you that opportunity they did, and opening your mind to it, and I guess showing the belief in you that you could have gone and done whatever you wanted? Is that from...
I suppose because my mum and dad always worked hard. They didn't have their own business, so they weren't really entrepreneurial. It was always about working hard and making sure that we all had whatever we wanted, really. I had a great childhood. I had everything from Nintendo, and some of my greatest memories are going to Blackpool with the, because we got the ferry to Blackpool and then going to Spain and Mallorca. They're some of my greatest memories as a child, but I think my parents worked to really give us the best that they could at that time. So, for me, that was probably instilled in me to work, and that was kind of where the working came. But I do remember the kind of entrepreneurial thing when I remember seeing the first, I worked for a guy called Philip Chick in Northern Ireland. He was a franchisee where I first started working in 1995. And Philip used to come to the drive-thru, to the restaurant to work. He used to work in the drive-thru with you. He was like there doing it. But he used to park his Porsche right in the first car parking space. And that was, I want one of those. Wow. Right. So for me, that was then. I was really young. That was how I defined success. I want that. I'd love to be a franchisee, or I'd love to, that's kind of where I wanted to go, really.
Wow. And then I guess the other thing I want to just touching on that childhood, like obviously going out and that sparked something in you going to McDonald's. But what was the during school time and stuff? What was the dream, ambition? What did you?
I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do when I was in school. I was always interested in business, with business studies. I was interested in music, so I did guitar lessons. I could play the guitar. All of those things, which many people don't know, don't really do it now. Yeah. But I was really keen with all of that, so I was always kind of wanting to do different things, and my parents always supported that. And then my sister, she wanted to be in stage, and they, remember we were taking her to shows and doing all of that when we were young. That was, I think, my parents' life, really, taking me to guitar lessons, my mum or my sister to, stage school and all of that, and that's how we grew up, really. But the ambition, I don't know. I always kind of never really knew what I wanted to do, which is kind of enlightening. I suppose some people said, "Oh, I want to be a doctor," and some people that I know from school wanted to be teachers. They became teachers, but I never really had this kind of what do I want to do. It was kind of
I always find this really fascinating because I'm the same. Like I was hands down, I was going to be a professional footballer. That was it, and then didn't become a professional footballer, surprisingly. Wasn't bad actually, but anyway. But I didn't, and I was exactly the same. And I got to 16, didn't make it. I was like, I had no idea what I was going to do. And I think again back to the school system. It's not set up necessarily, like especially going back to when I was at school, like a long time. Whereas like my wife, we went to the same school. She wanted to be a solicitor, so she knew. And I think it's great for those people that have got that in mind. Fantastic. And she's followed it through. She's going to be a judge soon, and she's lifelong dream, and that's what she's followed that, and that's great. But I think they're in the minority. Yeah. Right. So, and I guess one of the things I'm really keen to explore, especially around the education system, and actually having these conversations, and one of the reasons I do it so much is to actually, of course, entrepreneurship's difficult and it can be challenging and all of them things, but just to know that there is a different path, because it wasn't even spoke about when I was at school. Do you know what I mean? That word, I couldn't even spell it. I can't now, but you just couldn't. It wasn't a thing. To go and run your own business wasn't a thing. But I'd love for my kids to believe that there's other options other than following that traditional path. Like you said, it was almost programmed into us, wasn't it? To go, university, and you go and get
That was the thing, university. Yeah. I think the spark for me, Entrepreneurial, was when I started McDonald's, seeing like someone like Philip Chick that had this business. He was a franchisee, he owned this business, he's driving around the Porsche, loving life. And he was pretty young, he's probably in his 20s at that point, but his father owned JCB in Northern Ireland and the franchise. So, they had money to be able to do that. But, he was a great person to work for. It was just really different. But I think that was the kind of spark they gave me. And also working there in business and learning it, cashing up tills and learning the business. And even things like, they taught you about everything about labour costs. So, they had, even back then, they on the computer you could see what percentage of your cost was labour at that time from the money coming in. And I loved all of that. I was like, well, so it was watching, could send someone on a break to bring the labour costs down, because, you looked at it by hour. And some of the systems they had back then was incredible when I think about it, counting everything from cheese slices every night, on the daily count, because that was your food cost, what was your waste. I was really into that. I loved all of that, because I loved maths at school. So I was never really good at English, but I loved maths. And all of those things, I was always watching and, making sure the labour cost. And then they taught you how to do the schedule at McDonald's. And I loved all that when you became a salary manager. And that was about looking at the costs, what was the average sales at this time? How many crew members do you need? How many managers do you need? I scheduled everyone. So I think that was where the business bit came from, really. And that was why I loved it so much. Maybe back then my parents thought, oh, that's a crazy idea, you're going to go and work at McDonald's. But I loved it because it was something that I was learning about business, which was different than school. Than doing geography and, politics and whatever. It was really different. And I loved that. It was really weird. It kind of unlocked something in me where I was like, oh, I love this. I love learning all of those business bits about the profit and loss, about, how much everything costs, and looking at the P&L and, how much a restaurant, should have, its profit after controllables. That was drilled into you at McDonald's, and it kind of...
I'll tell you what I find really fascinating, actually, because you like you're naturally, you ooze enthusiasm. Right? Any time I've talked, whatever it is you're talking to me about, you've got this infectious enthusiasm about you. Right? But how many people that will go back similar ages to us and go back to that time and started and worked at Kelly worked at McDonald's, you know what I mean? But seeing McDonald's as just a little part time, I'm just going to go in there and But what I love about your store and listening to you talk about it with that enthusiasm, that one of the biggest things is you've obviously just got this natural curiosity, right? That you see something there, and I think that for me is probably one of the biggest things. If I can teach just to be curious, whatever it is, be curious and find out about stuff, because actually you probably started at the same time as someone else who just viewed McDonald's as I'm working in a burger place, or opposed to you who goes, I'm going to be a manager, and that's how I'm going to go.
Yeah.
I love that thought process in that, and I guess...
And it was tough because I moved around a bit with the company, and the company bought back stores and stuff, and I came back and managed people who were like training squad who kind of trained me, which was really tough because I was super young, and they would be back then. I suppose I thought they were much older. They would be 3 or 4 years older than me, but then it was, I was like 18 running a restaurant, and these people had trained me, and they were just there doing their thing, part time. And I was like suddenly back. It was really hard. It was really hard, and I think, but then people got on board with it because it was just always about, as I always say, no matter what you do, you have to have fun. If you're not having fun, it's kind of then there's no point doing it. And I had so much fun, at McDonald's, doing the drive-through and, breaking records with cars and stuff, It was crazy time, I think about it, running around like an absolute lunatic, moving those queues, nothing would stop it, But that was the buzz that I got, it was the buzz of driving those sales up, keeping those costs down. It was mad. I don't know why I loved it, but I loved it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what gave me, it was all of those processes and how they break everything down, because then that's how, if you do that, then you can grow anything you want. It's all about discipline and consistency, isn't it?
Would that be, like you say, I guess what you help businesses with now and with Go Succeed, like looking back, you alluded to a little bit earlier about, but so many of maybe the processes that you took from that model that you use today still? Or?
Yeah, I still use a lot of the processes. It's all about that discipline and consistency. And then I've went to many other jobs, including the cooperative bank. I worked there for 9 years. So I've done lots. So I went from McDonald's to Argos. So I was a manager for Argos. So I thought, right, and that was a big kind of, because I grew up, I know it seems like it's only 8 years, but I grew up, that was what I was then, right? And then I was like, I'm going to step off this train and kind of do something different.
What was the
there was just different things happening at the time, and I think this job came up and someone was like, you should apply for it, and I thought, Argos, it was a bit kind of, and the reason that going to that job is why I'm with Johnny today, because obviously I met Johnny at Argos, but that's another story. But those things were like, right, I need to learn something new. I kind of got to the point where I was running restaurants, had done lots. Let's learn something new, and then I joined Argos as a manager, which was kind of a big thing. And then I went from there to Starbucks, because then someone from McDonald's then brought me back, because Starbucks came to Northern Ireland. They're like, you need to come and start running branches and helping us, grow the Starbucks brand to Northern Ireland. Yeah. Wow.
Because I guess they're in similar fields, right? That retail, that type of element. And
processing.
Again, back to I was just about to say back to
Argos was all about processes. It was insane the amount of stuff that they have. They're not like that now, but the big stores and all of the catalogued items and everything what they called was binned. So they put it in a bin number, so the ticket came out and it told you. And it was kind of that was all processes. That was all processes where you had to test the team as well, because in the tickets, it's crazy, it would tell you the ticket, and basically the ticket was the 3 digits of what type of product it was, and then the actual 4 digits was what it was. So then you would go and find it, because it was all, in numerical order, but it would say on that ticket, like last 1, last 2, last 3, and you used to have to do what they called 3, 2, 1s, because there was so much coming into the stores. You didn't count all that stock coming in. You just put it out. You put it in the racks. So it was up to the staff when they were picking it to make sure if it said last 3, there was 3 there. Because what could happen is, if there was only 2 there and that didn't come in on a delivery, what could happen is someone would order it downstairs and pay, right? And we wouldn't have it in stock, and that was known as an out of stock. So that went against you as a brand. So that you were measured on that. Wow. So I used to do tests with the team and stuff, and take something out of the bin and hide it, and then when someone would order it, it'd be like one of our most popular items, and then are they actually counting it? Because that was the important thing. So the customer got the best kind of experience. They didn't, because you bought it downstairs, you were queuing up at the collection point. It had to be there. So again, that was processes. And there was so much goes into it. You don't think of all those things that are going in, all those people that are upstairs, bringing that stock in, picking that stock, putting it on the conveyor belt for it to come down. It was,
And it's fascinating, because I guess, I'm keen to think about people, starting on their entrepreneurial journey. You come up with an idea and you go, I'm really passionate about this, I want to go and do that, and you go out and you do it, and actually then the reality of running a business can hit, right? And you go, what does that look like? Whereas do you feel like with how you help people and with that knowledge base that you've got and all the different processes that you've seen in these different huge organisations, that you've stripped that down to basic processes you can put in place for any business?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's really important. When I'm working with any business, as a small business, you need to have those processes in place before you bring someone in. It's super, super important. I've met many businesses that bring people in to do sales, and they've done sales in IT or whatever the business is that they've been in. But it's like, this is your business. Who are you? What are your sales processes? My whole example is, if I was running a McDonald's restaurant and I hired a Burger King manager, that person wouldn't be just put in a restaurant to run it. They go through 6 months training, right, to make sure that they knew your systems and processes. Yes, they can bring their flair. Yes, they can bring the stuff and their knowledge, but they have to know who you are as a business. What are your values? What are your processes? How do you nourish your customers? Otherwise, there's a disconnect, and that's why people fall out and things don't often work. And I think that's the most important thing in business. When you set it up, is to get all of that in place, then start recruiting people. But sometimes what happens is people grow fast, and they don't think about it, and they bring people in, and it doesn't work out, and it becomes a struggle, and people fall out. And I don't think it's for bad reasons. It's because it's a miscommunication, because the person that's been hired is like, I think I'm doing this right. The owner is like, oh, well, they're not doing this right, and there's never that kind of communication. And it's setting that expectation, setting those, this is who we are, and bring your flair to it, but this is how we do things, and this is what's worked for us. If you have that noted down and have those processes in place, then people can learn and take them with you to the next level, because then they can bring their own stuff along with them too and add to that. But it's when they bring their own stuff and you've got and you're doing two different things and you don't know what's working, then that's when it all sometimes falls apart.
I just wanted to take a moment to talk about one of our sponsors, Nostos, an authentic experience of Greece right here in the heart of Hove. In a world brimming with dining options, finding that one place that captivates your palate and heart isn't always easy. It's about more than food. It's the stories, the ambience, the slice of another world. This is the essence of Nostos, an award-winning Greek restaurant. With traditional recipes passed down through generations, each dish promises a story and a piece of heritage. And Nostos is more than just a restaurant. It's a community contributor. Each dining experience supports initiatives close to their heart, from local charities to cultural events, enriching Brighton and Hove's social fabric. They also provide catering services, bringing Greek cuisine to your personal events. For a taste of Greece without leaving town, visit nostos-hove.co.uk. And when you do go, say Sam recommended the feta nests. Oh my God, they are amazing.
So, yeah, I'm sitting here thinking, I feel like you're holding a little bit of a mirror up to me. I'm looking at, because so much, I think, I look at some of the stuff I've done over 15 years. I've been running different businesses, and I'm saying I've been really open about stuff. And going this year, I'm making some changes. I got to the end of the last year, and I was a bit broken. I'll be honest with you, I just looked back and I went, I'm in the same position, doing the same thing, and got the same results. And I'm like, I've got to change. And I think so much of it is that going back to basics with some of the stuff. Like, I'm not a numbers man, I know, but how important that is to know. Like, listen to you talk about process and listen at your enthusiasm for maths, or and you knew exactly what was going in there, what coming out. Like, And if you don't know that, how can you grow the business? How can you know what you need to do in the next month, or rather than just the reason you live month by month is because you're winging it and you're living month by month rather than having a plan. I'm listening to you talk and thinking there's so much that. So I was going to ask you, if you go back to at the start of that journey, what advice would you give yourself? But I'm listening to it, thinking to me, I'd come and see a chat to you before I had to start my business and go, where am I and what do I need? Because then processes, it's just listening to you talk and listening to the organisations that you've worked for. The reason that they're sustainable and they're huge as they are is because of those processes, right?
Because then you can see what's not working.
Yeah.
Because then that's the thing where people get to a point and they get stuck. So you can grow a business, and loads of people, get lucky and grow a business and do great things, but then they get stuck because then you can't see what's working. And to grow and to take someone with you, you have to see what's working. And when you're at the start, you got to say, right, what is working? So then, when we're doing anything with anyone, it's kind of that whole thing. We worked with Lindsay at Connected Brighton. It was kind of like, how do you bring on? Lindsay had 7 people in her club when she started with us, and I said, let's do 7 a month, and she was like, that's insane. And I was like, but if you do it, and she had 42 by month 3, and it's just about kind of, if you do the same thing over and over, if it doesn't work, then you can go, right, this is a step. So when we work with businesses, we build out that process of the business. We literally do it in a day. I'm like, right, what's happening? And you're going to do this at this point. And if that doesn't work, then we can, when we're working with them weekly, well, that isn't working. Why is that not working? Are you not doing it? Or are we not using the right language? Right, let's change it up. Because if you do it again and again and it fails at that same step every single time, then we can adjust it. But if you're doing loads of different things and you can't tell what's not working, so
it's so logical, really, isn't it? When you talk like that, when you're sitting there talking to someone like you, and I remember sitting in your office and talking about this actually, and you say, and we're not reinventing the wheel, which it's just logical stuff, right? It's basic logic that you're just looking at them processes and how that. But how many businesses don't do that?
Yeah, and people get lost in the business. So you've got to be spending. So the biggest thing I always say to people is have that 1 hour, per day. Try and do 1 hour per day in the morning where you're not distracted by anything. You sit down and think, right, where are we going? What are we doing with the business? How are we strategizing? How are we getting to the next step? What am I doing today? What are the actions that I'm doing to bring the next batch of customers, the next batch of clients in? Because you can get lost in doing the do, but the most important bit is being able to do the strategy to bring people in so you can do the bit you love. And if you keep growing and growing then, and you know how to do that, then you can bring someone in to do that. Right? You can bring someone in to do the strategy bit because you know what works. You can teach them how to do it. And that's how you keep growing, and you can bring more and more people in and teach them that strategy. My last job was with a company called AutoSmart, and they were a franchise business, man and van, selling cleaning chemicals. So we had 140 franchisees across the UK, and I worked with them to help them grow. And it's all process based as well, so it was all about, their whole thing was, you do 20 calls per day, get 15 people on the showroom, do 10 demonstrations, and you'll get 3 new customers. And generally that works. You could do more. I could do more, but if you did that, and you could always tell, they had a system where you recorded that, and you could always tell where people were, not doing the calls. I could tell, because they're like, well, if you're not doing this, you're not getting, so let's see where it's broken. So I would go out with them and say, well, I'm doing, they fill it out, I'm doing 20 calls and but I'm not getting customers. And I would go out with them, and they were maybe not doing, or they weren't doing, they weren't getting 15 people in the showroom. And that was where I was at, right, let's teach you how to get those people in the showroom. Because then when we do that, then the rest, the magic happens, because they would struggle with maybe getting people in the showroom. So they go in and have a conversation with people and talk to them about, I'm here, and I'm like, you're selling to them. They're not interested, right? The best way to get someone in the showroom, I could get as many people as I wanted. Someone, I'd walk in and say, hey, I'm from AutoSmart, how you doing? I can see you're super busy. Yeah, I'm really, really busy. I'll tell you what, I see you're busy today. Let me get out of your hair. Can I leave my business card with you? And they go, yeah, I can. Yeah. Actually, it's on the showroom here. Come with me and I'll get it for you and then give you a brochure, right? Then you've got them out of their seat. They're on that showroom, and then they get into these, there were 150 grand machines, right, with TVs and all sorts. Then, oh, wow. And then they buy. Right? It's about how you think. Don't be selling to people in the first thing, And I say that to everyone as well. People try to sell, but it's about what is the process. the first step in the process is actually just getting to have a conversation with someone, taking them out of their zone to have a conversation so they understand you and how you can help them and what you do, and then they'll buy. But people go into it thinking, right, I gotta buy, sell.
The other thing I take from what you said just there is, as well, something big that comes out is, and on two sides, right? Communication.
Yeah.
Not only for trying to get sales in and how that works and that process, but actually go back a step where you said about when you're a business owner and you go, and I think I'm probably guilty of this. You in your head, I know everything about this business and I know exactly what to do. And because I'm getting busy, I'm going to bring someone else in to do it. And they should know exactly what's up there. Well, if you haven't got them processes in place and you don't communicate that properly, that's where the leadership thing falls down, I guess, isn't it?
Because people have it in their head, I've worked with lots of businesses where people have it in their head. It's like, let's get the processes down, because then we can really grow and help people. Otherwise, you just become frustrated with people. I've worked with trades, I've worked with, and we put them on the service mate system, whatever. But I'm like, get all of that quotation into the system, because owners go and do it themselves. And you're like, but what's going to happen is you're going to train someone, it's in your head, and they're not really going to know. They're going to make a mistake and you're going to fall out about it. And then they don't feel that they're being trained properly. And small businesses are the beating heart, right? But you can really make a big difference by acting like a big business, and it doesn't take too much to do that. And
is that part of the do you is it that in your process? Is it something that you, so say for example we work together and you look at my small business with a couple of people there, but you put processes in place that McDonald's would use, for example, in a big space, in a roundabout way, like to go, because it's just a system. So you strip that back, whatever that system looks like, it can work if that's that process.
Because we've built it into our four pillars, as we call them, at Go Succeed. So we've got believe it, which is your attitude, why. So why do you do what you do, and why will someone want it? Right. So that's where we start, because you've got to do the why. So the why is the most important bit. And that is super, super important. And then we move into plan it, which is strategy. So how are we going to get these people? What is it you want to achieve? So, we put the figure down. Then what does that look like? What's your average sales, for instance, right now? So it's all about knowing your numbers. Okay, so let's break that down. Whatever it is, if it's £1,000 a sale, you want to get 100 grand, it's 100 sales. So how do we do that? How many are we doing at the minute? Right, so what is that conversion? So how many people are you meeting in the minute, and how are we converting them? Obviously, if we increase the amount of people, the conversion may go down, but how do we get it to go up? And then we build that sales process. So what happens from, what are we doing when that customer now comes in? We've got these people coming in using our different sales channels, whatever they are, LinkedIn, networking, whatever it is, bringing all of those in. Then they come into the process. What happens at step one? What's the conversation we're happening? And then what happens at step two? And they never fall out of that process. They never go away and say, I'm thinking about it. Because the minute you do that, then you're just chasing someone. Because everyone falls into procrastination, no matter what, because it's normal life. But you've got to give people, signpost people. And we teach our clients how to do that. And when people say no, it's a no, it's fab. Because then you go back to the beginning of your process and go to the start. Whereas I work with loads of people who go, oh, actually, I've got about 30 people thinking about it. And when I tell them, well, you're not going to get any of them, they're like, you might as well just throw all of those leads in the bin.
Really?
If they're more than a couple of months, if you're really chasing someone, you can get them back into the process. But, if people are like and it's that kind of ping pong where, you're calling them, oh, sorry, I missed you. You've got to have a process where you keep them in the process. You've got to have that, because then if it's a no, or maybe it's a no for now, that's fine. And you go back, you diarise it. Then that also creates time in your diary, because people also then procrastinate in their own business, thinking, right, I've got 30 people, I've just got to keep chasing them, and they think that they're getting that, but actually what they should be working on is the beginning of the process, bringing more people in that are going to buy.
Wow. Okay.
Because people do sit and go, oh, okay, I've got 30. So they do take the feet off the gas.
My pipeline's full. I've got
all these people that are thinking about it. Well, they're thinking about it, but actually they're going to buy. Where are they? They're not in your process anymore. And that, what I like to say is, they're in the danger zone now, because they're off. And someone else may sell to them and put them in a process, and then they're gone.
Do you get to a point where actually you're telling them, if is there a part of the process that actually, I'm just following you up this last time, for example?
It's what I call the Hail Mary.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's kind of like if you have someone that can't, and they're avoiding you and not coming, you send them the letter and say, look, I'm closing down your inquiry. We're super busy. We've got people filling up the places. If you're interested, please do come back to me. But I'm not going to kind of, pest you again. I'll check in with you 6 months, 12 months time. And lots of times people come back and go, actually, I really want it, because you're creating that kind of,
Is that more? Because I'm always intrigued around the whole exclusivity, scarcity. If people feel like they're missing out on something, if you can create that, environment where people feel like they need to be part of something. I guess if they're in the process, they've bought into something about you, whether it's your values or what you stand for, or maybe what you can offer, or how you can help their business, whatever that is. Once they're in that cycle, then it's just to convert them.
It is about scarcity. It's about creating the need to have it right now.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's like buying a car, isn't it?
Yeah.
They create the scarcity. Yeah. It's we've only got this one car. We've got someone else looking at it. They create the scarcity. Yeah. They keep you in the sales process. They create that scarcity. You have to create scarcity in order to kind of get people to take action. Because people, it's not because they don't want it or don't believe in you, but it's because people procrastinate. And then what can happen is, while they're procrastinating, someone else can jump into their sphere, and they can be amazing at what they do, and then they take them. And it's, oh no, I've gone and done this, whatever it is, whether you're working with, I've gone with this website company because I've met this person and they're doing. It's wow, I spoke to you, but you didn't have them in your process.
Again, like just talking, so like it all just sounds so logical that. From a bit, and it'd be really intriguing for me to find out how many. Because I've speak to loads of entrepreneurs and business, and how many have not or start out on that journey, and that because actually what you're saying here, the process, like it should be the first thing that they do, right?
Yeah.
So as an entrepreneur, I've come up with this idea. First thing I do, bang, get think. I guess you trying to encourage people to think like a big business right from the start. I think people will struggle with that. Like I would probably go, I don't necessarily. Maybe you don't want to be a big business, or you don't want it, but for it to be sustainable, you've got to still think in that process, right? Yeah.
You don't have to be a big business. You can get to wherever you want to be, but it's got to be sustainable. So you're not kind of living from month to month, and the fear of where's my next client coming from. You've got these processes in place. They're churning away, and they're bringing in what you need. Whether you want to be an individual entrepreneur and that's what you want to do, amazing. But as long as you have that process, so you're kind of living a comfortable life, whatever it is that you want, you've got to have that, because then you kind of got stability. You're getting up in the morning and doing this. I'm doing my strategy for 1 hour. This is what I'm doing. Because otherwise it becomes, your day becomes a bit of a mess for a lot of people, because then they're running around going all different places. I work with loads of people and they're having all of these meetings, like, right, stop. Let's have a look. What days can you have meetings on? Let's make that day for your meeting. And some people, when you break it out like that, they're like, oh, wow. And that's how they start to get success. Because then they're kind of like, okay, they start looking at their time. What am I doing with my time? And it's just little things can make a huge difference. And you don't see it. Sometimes I can be guilty of it too. We've got our processes, and then I go off and do loads of different things, right? And it just happens. You kind of think you've got to be disciplined. But what is the day for doing this? Wednesday's my day, kind of really, where I do my BNI in the morning and I meet people, because that's the day. Monday's kind of a day for really planning and doing stuff like that on Fridays, and we've got everything else in between. But you need to be doing all. If you don't do the other things, then they're not going to come. You can just get lost in.
Because it's so again, like, the whole mirror. Like I listen to that and think. How many times I'm out and about a lot, and people go, "God, you're everywhere. You're doing it everywhere." Okay, but you actually can sometimes just be a really busy fool, right? And I think, and again, it just for me, it just keeps taking my mind back to getting that process. And I've started to get better at that, similar to how you're saying, like going, right, this is my day for recording. This is my day for meetings. This is the day for plan, whatever that looks like in a week, just to try and get. Because I was literally. couple of meetings here, cut you in and out of Brighton for a couple of meetings every day, and you're not then. One, you're always available. Oh, can you meet? Yeah, I can do that day. Rather than go, no, my next meeting's not till. But I think when you're in especially in that start-up phase, I guess you almost the sniff of getting a new client. But I guess again, it's back to that. If you're really strict at that, so you believe in what you're doing, and you've got that process in place that you can just go and you follow that step by step, they will come. You will find them clients and you will get them in, but you're focused on those days, right? Yeah. And you're focused on that. That is the day I'm going to get some sales in. I'm going to get that part of their process is going to be they're going to get in front of me, and I'm going to explain to them. Mate, it does make so much sense, and I wonder why. I wonder why so many business owners because I guess back to what you probably said about they get caught up working in the business instead of on it. And
it's true. When I started Go Succeed, I worked with a coach.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I worked with a guy called Michael Graham that I met before I left my job, and that was kind of Mike taught me a lot of where we are today. This is why Go Succeed is who it is today, because you've got to always be learning, bringing the stuff, because it was really scary for me to start my own business.
What let's delve into that. What because a long period in corporate, right, and going from working at large organisations, and what was the catalyst? What made you?
So I went from Starbucks to then the Co-op Bank for 9 years. I was made redundant. Then I could have started my business then. I didn't. I went and worked for Autosmart from 2015 till 2021 for 6 years. And
why didn't you go? Did you think?
I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I did, but I didn't. I was kind of like, what is the business that I want? What is it that I can do? With
so you always felt that because
there was something.
There was always something in you that wanted. In the back of your mind, you thought, I'm going to run my own business one day. Was that?
Yeah, always going to run my own business. But then I went and got a job with Autosmart International. So I got made redundant from banking in the co-op, which was I could have went to work for another bank. Got offered a job with the Nationwide, and I decided actually I'm going to go and do this job with Autosmart, which is a franchise business going back, and it was coaching franchisees. Right. Basically, that was my job. So I looked after the South East in Ireland and the end in London. And basically, my time was coaching these franchisees to make their business successful, because they're individual guys in a lorry. Some of them had multi-showrooms and salesmen. But my job was to be there, coach them in the systems and processes, and coach them to have a successful business, to follow them on, to grow their business, and really they could make some serious money. Right. So that was my job. And I loved it. When I started it, I had to learn how to drive a truck, all of those things, and go and do it myself first, which was fab. So I did it for like 6 months. Again, they taught me the processes. They didn't just bring me in. Yeah. I learned how they do things. So then I went and did all of that. And then COVID hit. And that was kind of a big turning point. So COVID hit, and I was working full on, because then I took over. We lost someone in the Southwest. It was all they went just before COVID, so I suddenly had this huge area. So I think I had 52 franchisees to support, right? And then a lot of the support was being out in the truck and then meeting them, doing business plan meetings, and then going out with them on a day, going, right, are you doing your calls? Are you getting people on the shore? All of that. So now I had Ireland, the Southwest, the Southeast. So I was working lots, right? And Autosmart was a cleaning business. Right, so they sell cleaning chemicals to cars and truck businesses, everything you can think about, even waste companies. So what was the biggest thing that everybody wanted in COVID was cleaning products, right? And sanitizer. We sold sanitizer, but it was a minimal scale. So I had all these franchisees screaming at me because I'm their contact, saying that they need sanitizer, and we didn't have it. So it was trying to build their businesses. So I was working, everyone was on these furloughs, and I was like up at 6 a.m. in the morning having meetings with franchisees on Zoom before they go out in their trucks, saying, right, because they were an essential service, we need to keep doing it, keeping them motivated, doing all of those things, and working till like 7 o'clock at night. And then there was a point then where we had new franchisees join us. I had one in the right in Cornwall, and I was driving to Cornwall, right? Mad. I got there quite quickly because there was never anyone on the road.
Right,
but it was mad staying in hotels. And I was just working all the time, And this is where we also created Cherry Bomb and that whole speed, another side business. But I was working all the time, and it got to 2021, and I was kind of like, actually, I'm not at home. I'm not at home. I'm now on the road. I'm never really, my whole life isn't. And I love working for Smart. Great company. Yeah. Don't have a bad word to say about them. You know, they taught me a lot. Sophie Atkinson owns it, amazing. But actually, there was just a time where I was like, I need to do something different. I need some time back. And, you know, I was just kind of researching it. I find this guy, Michael Graham, all of this, and kind of like, right, I'm going to do it. And I was really scared. But Johnny, their parents are entrepreneurs, got their own business, and Johnny's like, you can do it. And Johnny had a job at the time working in Savile Row, and I was like, I don't know. And Johnny was really encouraging me to do it in 2021, like, do it, you know, we can do it. You know, I've got a job, you can do it. And it was like, it was the biggest decision I ever made, because I wasn't made redundant. It wasn't leaving on bad terms. It was nothing. I resigned, right, to go and set up my own business. Wow. And I remember the last day. I remember, so we drove up on the Thursday, we went out for dinner with everyone. On the Friday, I had to drop my laptop and my phone and all of that back. I did buy my company Jaguar, but so, you know, I kept that, a bit of, you know, something that was, but I remember leaving my laptop and my phone and all of that and getting in the car that Friday afternoon, because they were based in Lichfield, just outside Birmingham, and driving down the M40. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, what am I doing? I'm leaving a really super well-paid job with a pension, with everything. What am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? And I phoned the franchisee, who I'm still very good friends with, and I spoke to yesterday a guy called Clive, who's a multi-franchisee for Autosmart in Ireland, in the south of Ireland. And I was just chatting to him. He went, you're going to smash it, because you know, believe in yourself. You're going to smash it. You're doing the right thing. I'm really sad you're leaving, because I love working with you, but you're going to smash it. And Clive actually became a client of Go Succeed. You know, because he's like, I still want you to work in my business. You really kind of motivate me, so I'm going to pay you. So we went and did that. But I do remember that. It was the scariest part. And I suppose that's why I want to franchise Go Succeed. That's what I want to help people to be able to jump off and go and do it. It's not just about money. It's about being able to give people that freedom and be able to give people that we can really help them. I've got a system that works. I can give it to people to use with other people. So we're not only helping those people, we're helping other businesses. And that's the whole thing. Imagine the circular where, you know, you're helping every business go succeed. That's what gets me excited. You know, where I can help people do that. I jumped off, you know, with the support and, you know, had Mike Graham as a coach. But I can jump off and give people the tools and say, here, we're here with you. This is how to do it. These are the steps you need to follow to get to where you want to be. It'll help someone that way, because it'll still be really scary. When I spoke to Autosmart franchisees their first days, it's really scary. Like you're going into this world where you don't have a salary, right? What you do is what happens with the money coming into your bank account.
Take me back to that point. Like, what was the process that you said about being scared? What at that particular time? What was the scariest point? Where
are we getting a client from, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Why are people going to believe in me? Because who am I? I'm just working, right? Who am I? I know, you know, whatever, 70, 80 clients down the line. But why will people believe in me? That was the big thing, right? Really, really scary. And my first client was in Wales, crazily, which I met this guy on a networking thing. That was my first client, I never even met ever in person. And, you know, it was really scary. That was it. Where are we getting this from? Obviously, we were okay. You know, Johnny was working. We had a little bit. So we were okay. So it was kind of like we had that buffer. But then it was kind of like... But when I got into the flow of it, I think within 3 months, we had 5 clients. It was kind of like, right, you know. And it is just about being able to take people on that journey with you and say, look, I can help you. You've got to be able to have that confidence. And people can... If you don't... You know, people do get imposter syndrome, and sometimes I do, but you have to show people that you can help them, because people can tell, can't they? They can tell, oh, you know, if you have that little bit of doubt, they can see that bit of doubt, which makes them think, actually.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to me, because I think there is that self-belief. You've got to have that self-belief, right? I guess you hope that we need. I think we'd all be lying if we didn't need a little bit of external validation from someone, our partner or circle of friends, coach, whatever that is. You need, potentially some of us need that external validation. Am I crazy doing this, and just someone else? But ultimately, the buck stops with you. You've got to believe. You've got to believe in yourself,
Yeah.
right?
You gotta believe. But I think you do need that person. I don't think I would have did it without that push from Johnny.
Really.
And Johnny has been kind of, I say this, for everything we do, we push each other. And I think that's why we are where we are, because Johnny pushed me, believed in me. If Johnny didn't, if I had a partner that didn't do that, it'd be kind of, I think, different.
Yeah,
You would be nervous to do it because you'd be like, this person's telling me, oh, you're crazy. Because then you'd be scared of it. It would be a bigger thing. You'd think, oh, it's going to fail. And if it fails, then, what have I done? So you just stay with the norm. Whereas Johnny was very much, and I've been like that with Johnny, when Johnny worked for Burberry, Johnny got a job in Hong Kong with Burberry. And I was like, do it.
Wow.
Right? And we were, that was 2012. We were together 8 years before we got married. And we got married then when Johnny was in Hong Kong, actually, and then came back. But, I was like, do it. Because you've got to do these things. And we would never hold each other back. I would never hold Johnny back, That doesn't mean that, we still love each other and we still make it work. But I think that partnership, and it's really interesting because now Johnny obviously is in Go Succeed, started last January, and that's taken us to a different level because they've brought their skills into the business, and it's made us go to another level, and we're doing many other things with corporates, and we've got other programs. This is just incredible. And I think people say, oh, working with your partner, but I think if you've got that relationship, it can work. And we really bounce off each other. Very different, but we bounce off each other.
You can tell it. And I guess one thing I think is amazing about that, just talk about relationship side of stuff, I guess, for the time being. Actually, when you're in a relationship, it's wanting the best for that other person, right? So you're in a relationship because that person enhances your life in some way.
Yeah.
But you genuinely get joy. You want them to be the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
They want you to be the best version. That's surely what it's got to be about, right?
Yeah, it is. It is about being the best version of yourself and doing crazy things. We created Cherry Bomb in lockdown. And we had a whole TV show by the end of lockdown. I was working all these hours on a Saturday. I was setting up a studio in our living room, and I said, this has to stop, because I was like building it and bringing it down. We had lighting, we had cameras, we had proper microphones. It was insane. We're bringing people live from across the country. We had adverts from Brighton Gin. It was insane, right?
Wow.
So my lockdown was like crazy. The only day I got was Sunday.
You weren't sitting outside like a lot of other people going, I'm just going to enjoy this furlough and have a little bit of sun.
No, we used to get a takeaway roast on a Sunday. That was like, well, I need to calm down, a glass of wine, because it was mad. But, supporting Johnny doing that and Cherry Bomb, and I think it's that energy that we have, and I learned so many skills from that. People think, oh, but it's a skill, and it brings joy, and, we've got all of our own sound equipment now. We do, doing shows, doing weddings, events, we've done the Gatwick Diamond event. We've done so much, and that brings joy as well. And sometimes it's kind of, we both work in both businesses, So Cherry is a business, effectively, right? She's out there doing it. The great thing about her is she's bringing joy to people, which is
absolutely
what Johnny loves. They love bringing that joy to people, and it's great to see the smiles on people's faces. But, I don't think we could do it unless we were together, because there's a lot. And it's driving each other on. And Johnny drives me on, Johnny really does drive me on and brings lots of things to the table for Go Succeed. You're like, yeah, well, that's a really good idea. Or, and I'm full of ideas. It's like, right, this is how we're going to do it, And it's the same thing, It's Johnny's also very creative, and I am very process-driven. Although I do have great ideas, but, Johnny will be very creative and make it all look nice and sound better.
It's a great balance, though, right? What a perfect, and that's what's beautiful, I guess, to hear. Like, not only from as life partners, but as business partners as well. Like, you bring so much to the table. You can just you can tell. Great, like obviously when we done the front cover feature, it's great just to have you guys together and read the story. And it's just And Cherry Bomb obviously done the Big Business Breakfast Club, which has been amazing. And I know the stuff at Nostos and all of that, like people we know. And like you said, just bring so much energy and joy. And I guess that's the other part, isn't it? Of I guess one of the reasons you start with the believe and the why side of stuff, because it can be tough, right? And in whatever way we can, and I'm really keen to go down that route a little bit with you, maybe either challenges you've faced in business, but or that you've seen over the years, but certainly I guess with your clients and some of the challenges that they face, because it can be glamorised, entrepreneurship, especially a hustle culture. You can set up this and do this, and there is some amazing things. I can't imagine working for someone else. I think I've 15 years of running my own business. I think but it comes with a lot of challenges. Talk to me about some of maybe the challenges you faced in business that you've seen over the years as well, the businesses you've worked with, and share a little bit about that.
I think for me, I suppose some of the challenges for us at Go Succeed is always like, do we spend this money, right? And it's always that risk, that gamble, because when you're in the first 5 years of your business, it is all putting it back in, but you've got to live as well, right? So it is that kind of, those will bring stresses. Shall I do it? Shall I not? The whole franchising thing. Shall we do it? There's costs implicated with all of those things, and what will it bring? And it's taking those risks, and they are a challenge to me sometimes, because sometimes I, not the biggest risk taker. Whereas Johnny would probably be a bigger risk taker, so will push me to do that. And sometimes, I will, be awake at night thinking, what have we done? Right? Yeah. Even though I believe it, right? I do believe it. But you've got that kind of, everyone has that doubt. We're like, what have we done, right? We spent all of this money. What have we done? And, but it's always worked out. Yeah. But I think it's that is the same thing. The biggest challenge with all businesses is that cash flow, and about what keeps people up at night. They've got families and all of that, because I think the money bit is the bit that kind of drives it, but you've got to think about why you do it, and the money will come after. But it's hard. Listen, it's hard. And sometimes, I think about it too. I'm not in it just for the money. I'm in it because we do what we want to do. But the bit about the money is like, right, actually, we need to pay the mortgage. We need to do this. Those are the bits as well that can also hold you back. And it's about having that belief. So, it's not just about, people say, oh, it's, money, whatever. But it is. But you can have that belief, but also you can have those, doubts. And sometimes, you can't get to sleep at night because my mind's ticking over. Not just about what can we do, and, how are we going to do this, and we've done this, and how are we going to bring those people in, and it's exciting as well. But those would probably be some of the, and you can get very distracted by it. And it's kind of like, right, let's go back. And that's why I think that it's really important that we follow our own processes. So I'll get up and I'll go, right, no, actually I'm doing this. This is what I'm set to do, because you can go off down a rabbit hole of kind of destruction. And then that distracts and can make it even worse. So that would be, the biggest challenge is everyone can lose focus.
Resonates so much, because I guess I talk about success a lot, right? Talk about the metrics in which we measure success, and I think whatever way we look at it in society, in business especially, the main metric which we measure is financial gain, right? Profit and loss. Everyone talks about that. Business is successful because they turn over 100 million. Wow, my focus is away from that. Okay, it's not about the money. I'm not driven by money, if I'm being honest. It doesn't. It's not what lights me up. Helping people, building a community. That's what, like, sharing stories. This is I'll do this till the day I die. I love it. Absolutely love it, right? So I've got that thing. But the caveat to it all is that, as you've just mentioned there, the thing that keeps me up at night is the fact, where's that coming in? How am I going to pay that? Where am I going to, and the lack of that sometimes, that financial stability, because it takes you away from the focus the good stuff that you are doing, because you're worried about that, and that's stressing you out, and so you're not then firing on all cylinders, because then it makes me look at it and go, actually, I'm not driven by money, but if I make more money and I'm in that position where there's stability, I can do more great work and do the things I love doing and help more people, or whatever it is that lights me up. So it's trying to get, I think, for anyone listening, for business owners, I guess, and so much of it, I think, like listening to you, this has been fascinating, because listening to you, I think so much of it can be that stress can be taken away if you've got them processes in place. Yeah. It's interesting to hear you talk about it, in the sense that you go, I still have them doubts and stuff, but I'll go back to what are our processes.
And that's what makes it work. So it's like, and then Johnny will go, why are you doubting? I know, but you do, right? Because that's me. It's inbuilt. I think because I grew up, with it, not, we weren't affluent or whatever. I grew up, you got to earn money, and I think because I've always had that. I grew up not living from paycheck to paycheck, but I know I've got a good salary coming in. I can do this. You can do this. I can do this. I grew up with that, and sometimes think, thinking about it, but you just got to believe in the process. And I think the biggest thing that people make the mistake about, and some of the best businesses we have worked with, people have said to me, I don't want to be a millionaire. I just want to have a great life. And I was like, well, let's make that. Let's get the systems and processes to give you whatever it is, 75k, 100k a year, because actually, and it's interesting if you read some stuff, that's where most people are happy in that band of earning that money. It is crazy, because you get bigger. So, get there, but have those things that keep that coming along so you can do what you love. You don't need to be the richest person in the world. But the biggest thing is do the things that you love. And spend time with the people that you love. That's really important. And doing things that are the memories. Because the greatest memories, that I've always said, is, going to Hong Kong and Miami and Barbados and Bali. I think of all those things that me and Johnny have done in the last 20 years. Those are the things that are the greatest memories. Spending time with family at home, our nieces, our nephews. Those are the greatest memories. You don't remember, some things you may, but you don't remember some of the great things. I've had fabulous cars over the year, but are they the things, that I do remember? Yeah, I do a little bit, but it was great at the time. That was when I was young, buying fancy, the first Mini Cooper S in Northern Ireland, all sorts of crazy stuff, BMWs and all of that. And it becomes that big thing. Whereas now it's interesting because I'm not that focused on it anymore. My car now, is kind of, I've had it from I've left off. I used to get a car every 2 years. Whereas I'm not that focused on it anymore.
Why? Where is that shift? Is that shift come because one, you're running your own business and you look at things slightly differently, or?
I think so, and I think it's more about the value of what we do, and that, because I think it is interesting. I think there's also the thing when you're in the corporate world, there's always that status thing, right? And these people driving around in BMWs, Audis, Mercs and whatever, it's that status thing, Even in the job I did, you got all these nice company cars. I had a Jaguar as my company car, and it was this whole thing, all the guys that I work with, it's like, who's going to, what car you going to order, it's kind of like, and it is a status thing. It's kind of that status thing. But actually, is that what really matters? No, it isn't. And it's interesting, and it is, and that's.
And I wonder what, because this is my whole thing, like my whole mission is around how we can change that narrative around that status-based thing. Like how can it? Because the main reason for it, for me, my main purpose for trying to have a go, because actually, when it's a status-based achievement, I need to get there. The reason there's a correlation between that and when you go, actually, we go down the route of suicide, especially amongst men, that 60% of those suicides are finance or economic related.
Yep.
So when you look at that process and you go, actually, well, that number, 84 men are killing themselves a week, and 60% of those is something to do with finance. Is it because that we still view the world that I'm not successful because I've not reached that status or that financial wealth? That's where, that for me is where there's a point when I'm talking to someone like you who helps businesses grow in a way, but the way that you've talked about it and the way, even from a success point of view, and the things that light you up and the things that bring you joy is the memories and the people you surround yourself with, and that I think and that's what come out of the 100th episode I've done, coming out soon. I look at it and go, if we change that narrative a little bit and people measured their success, because I'd be really keen to tap into because you posted something recently we mentioned about, and actually when you work with businesses, the metrics in which we measure success, like you, and even from what Go Succeed do and how you help businesses, you still look at different metrics of measuring success, right? So talk to me about.
I suppose it's that, is it your customer engagement? Is that what you measure? Is it employee engagement? Is that what you measure? Are your employees happy? Is it productivity? What is it that you measure? It doesn't have just to be money. Because that's really important about why you do what you do, because the money comes afterwards. I don't measure success on money. As long where we are in our business, I think, right, as long as we can pay the mortgage and live the life that we want to live, right? Who knows where it can go. But I don't live my life to think, right, we're going to be a 10 million, 20 million. We have to, I don't live my life to do that. The big thing is, that we're doing it to help people. And for me, measuring success is the success of others. And that gives me the greatest buzz. When I work with people, Kelly at Bella June Flowers, I work with her. She's now got 3 stores. She's gone off and done that in, Sussex, and, Lindsay Clay. We've got so many like stories, Helen Lipscomb, who came working with us at the beginning of her business now, and she's, she runs a resilience continuity business. And, it's insane where she's gone in 6 months, like bigger than what I thought it could be, but very process driven person. So, because that's what she does, and literally it's work because she followed the process. It's like, and those are the people. It's kind of like, you don't have to be the best salesperson, but if you follow the process and do it and keep doing the things, then you will get success.
It's really interesting because I like you mentioned obviously a mutual friend like Lindsay. I'm a massive fan of her. We're really close friends, and she said exactly like she went, I'm just not a salesperson. I remember her saying that to me, I know what a great testimony she is to you, because she says about like just getting that process in place and going, can I do this, and how quickly she's grown the connected brand and 100 and the business club side of it, and all of the things that she's done by just going, I'm just going to stick into that process. And I guess for you it must be how rewarding that is, but actually the people that come on board with the because you must have some challenges with clients who come on board who go but don't actually follow that process.
We do, and that's hard. That's a struggle for me, and it's kind of like you have to be honest with people and say, actually, look, you're not doing this, because if you don't do it, it's not going to work. Right, it's not going to work. I worked with a company in Portsmouth. It was an electrician. 2 guys owned it, and they were at loggerheads, and I walked away. I was like, guys, there's no point doing this program because we're not getting anywhere. And for me, it's about the brands, it's about helping people. It's about being honest with people as well. And it's kind of, when people don't do it, it's interesting because we've got our own platform now. So, we do all our session notes, we create our actions, it texts the client to remind them of their actions. And people that don't do their actions are the people that don't. And then they come on the call, but they understand that, and then they do the actions and it gets there. But listen, it takes time, right? It does take time. And when people start to see it happening, that's what it is. Because actions are the things that will kind of create it going on. It's about consistency and discipline. You have to do it in order to get it back. If you don't do it, then you're not going to get it back. It's kind of that, sometimes you have to get in and do the hard stuff to get it back. Like Lindsay, she had an amazing business. She could tell people, but she just didn't have a process to tell people. So she could tell them, but she didn't have the process to take them through, engage them, and bring them on as a client. Whereas when we put that in place, it was kind of, and then you start doing it the same thing every time, then you become kind of a master at it, because you're like, oh, and it's not that she's a salesperson, she's just telling people, but she's got them in a process so that she knows to take them to there. And I think, and that was the best moment, when Lindsay, I remember last March, like, I've got 47 people. I was like, it was insane. She was,
I know. I remember telling you the same conversation.
She embraced it. She did it, and it's like Helen, she's got people. She turned down business. One of our clients turned down business. She said, I don't want to work with them. And it's just nuts, right? And she's like, she didn't even have a website when she started with us in August. Right, because she just started out in her business. Now she's got a website. We've started. She's got an online event. When she first started, she had 3 people at it. Now the last one, I think there was 25 people at it. People from Miami, someone from London Underground. It's nuts. But you just got to tell your story, get it out there, and do those actions, and it will happen. I remember my first event. We had 1 person turn up. 1 person. My last Gold Mine event, we had, was it 30 people? Because that's what we limited to, but it was sold out. But my very first one, I had 1 person.
Wow.
And Johnny wasn't working in the business, took the day off work and supported me in that.
Wow.
And we 10 people said they would come, and 1 person showed up. But you got to keep going, because people will give up and go, oh, it's not working. And it was kind of like, oh, wow, 1 person. And the next one, 2 people turned up. But you got to keep going. You got to keep believing. You got to keep going. And I was new to the networking scene, so I knew no one in Brighton really back then. One of the first ones I did was BNI, and the other one I did was the BBBC. And we were meeting in the little restaurant down on the front. Was the very first one in January. you know. So that was where the very first ones that I kind of came into the networking scene. And that was only in really the beginning of 2022. So it's not been a huge amount of time, and I made so many contacts, you know, met so many great people. Bobby Williams.
Yeah.
He was another one of my first clients.
I was really, because I was just looking up some bits and pieces, put some questions together, I looked at, and Bobby, like the testimony on the website from Bobby, like literally 50 clients within like a month or 2 months.
6 months, yeah.
Something crazy like that. That's incredible. But it's such a...
Because Bobby knew no one in the networking scene when he first started. I met him in Hotel Divan at the BBC, sat beside me, really quiet, you know, and, you know, just going out. And I was like, and I never sell to people. I was like, let's have a coffee. I can give you some hints and tips. And he was like, I want to work with you. And then we flew. Someone else that's followed the process, now probably better known on the networking scene than me. He's taking my stuff to the extreme, right?
Yeah.
But
okay, I'm just going to say something about one of our sponsors, Redefining. The world of cars, vans and minibuses is often a pain point for many of us. The hassle of finding the right vehicle, let alone looking after it, are all more things to add to our lists as busy people. Redefining's mission is to make motoring manageable, and that's why they provide leasing, purchasing, servicing and vehicle management. So whether you have one family car or a fleet of vans for your business, Redefining are your trusted vehicle supplier. Visit www.redefining.co.uk. Okay, let's jump back to the podcast.
This is great.
It's an amazing time. It's just such a... I don't know, I think like listening to you talk is such an important lesson for anyone listening that are in that... Because I tell you what, as you mentioned about that, putting on the one event and one person coming up, I tell you, I follow... who's the fitness guy? Who am I thinking of? The guy that done all the stuff over lockdown as well.
Joe Wicks.
Joe Wicks, yeah. But it's very similar, right? He says exactly the same thing. He said, like, I would go down. He said, I'd put my events on. I'd go down to the park to go and get people. And sometimes I'd just be down on my own doing the exercise. No one would turn up. And he said, but I just believed in the and then all of a sudden during lockdown, what was he doing? Like, he was national. Everyone was online doing the Joe Wicks. And he's one of the most famous, you know, fitness trainers in the world. But it's that belief, isn't it? Like you said, like just knowing what your why is. I know why I'm doing this, right?
Yeah.
Believing that you can deliver it and you're going to deliver that value to people, and the other stuff will come. Just keeping on.
And I think if you do it for money, it's upside down, and I think it's harder because you can't communicate your why, no matter what you're selling. Why are you doing it? You know, what is it doing? You know, it's kind of that whole thing. You know. The big thing, you know, Starbucks is another big corporation I work for, but they said that they were in the people business serving coffee. They're not in the coffee business. Wow. Right. So that was their whole thing, that they trained the staff, you're in the people business. That's why they take your name, because they're in the people business. They created that whole brand around that. You know, and I know, you know, shop local and all that, and I totally get that, but it's just interesting when you look at those, the perspective of how, you know, they're flipping it. You know, they're not selling coffee, they're in the people business. You know, and all of their employees are partners within Starbucks, you know, so they have a little share and all of that. So it's kind of, that's how they build that brand of people, you know, that, and it's interesting.
Because it's hard though, isn't it? So it is hard, like we alluded to sort of challenging and stuff at the thing, and there is that, it is hard to stick to just keep believing that sometimes. Like you said, when you turn up, you got one person that you think, oh, bloody hell, like what? Like, but... And especially when there's that, and then you combine that with you're looking at what's coming in financially. Like, what am I doing? Do I need to? Because I'll be completely honest. There's been times, especially even over the last couple of years, you go, Jesus, like 15 years in business, and I'm like, do I just knock this on the head and go and get a job and go and work for someone? Like, no pressure and stress on that side. But you come round, I guess what gets me through is again, it's the belief that I get up every day and love what I do, and like today, what like I get up and the kids hardly ever hear me say I'm going to work. They go, what are you doing today? Oh, I've got a podcast. Got my friend Gary coming on. I'm going to have a chat with him. I'm hosting an event. I've got doing 100th episode of the podcast. Do you know what I mean? I'll get up. They never hear me say I'm going to work. They just hear me talk about the stuff I'm doing and they see me light up. And all I guess I want for them is that. Well, I don't care what. Go and sweep the roads. If you love it, if you love doing it, go and do that. And I think that's what. And listen, I guess flipping it to your journey. And again, I'll refer back to your infectious enthusiasm. Just talking McDonald's, go back to that. I'll just go back to that. And the preconception of McDonald's, someone sitting in front of me as an entrepreneur and going, oh, McDonald's, but you talk about it with that enthusiasm and stuff I've learned and like processing this, and that, wow. Like, do you know what I mean? You can tell that you...
And I
went back to Gary back then.
Yeah.
You loved it, right?
I did love it. I wasn't going to work then. People said I had ketchup in my veins. People said I was a lunatic, right? They did. They were like, oh, you know, and it was all about getting those cars through the drive-thru, making it fun, doing that, you know. We had a whole big thing back then. We had Super Team Ireland. I remember that, where we brought all of the best drive-thru teams. Our team, I was part of the best drive-thru team for our restaurant, and we went and competed to get the most cars through the drive-thru. We did 118, but the team that we did it at Sprucefield and all that, it was their restaurant actually, so they had a bit of an advantage. They did 121, but I was really proud. We did 118 cars in an hour. You know, it was by keeping those wheels turning, to park those cars up, get them through, keep them. You know, people that you 2 lanes, making sure. Nothing worse than someone coming in and don't know what they want in the drive-thru. That used to drive me nuts. Why is that car away no one? It's holding up the queue, right? Keep them moving, right? Keep them moving. The wheels got to keep moving. My whole mantra then was, even now when I go to McDonald's, if it's double fold razor sharp, so they should fold that by double fold razor sharp, hanging out the window. It makes them speed up. Wow. Have it out the window when they're basically at the other window, so they drive quick to get it. That's how you eat. But yeah, all of those things. But I loved all of that. It made me, and I think that was where, even when I worked with AutoSmart, I loved it, but I think there came a point where it was just like, actually, I think COVID had a big thing for a lot of people. And it made people think about, all of those things, because I suppose I was in a point where we were always working, doing all of that. And then there was probably the point in COVID for the first couple of months where I was working from home a lot. And I was working 12 hours a day. I was at home, and then we were doing stuff in the evenings. The summers was lovely. And those types of things. Then when I was starting to go away again, it made me think, actually, is this what I want to do? Not because I didn't like the company, not because I didn't, I loved the company, loved what I did, but actually was thinking, is there more into it for me? I don't want to be traveling and driving to Birmingham twice a week or whatever. As much as I love it, actually what's more important to me is spending time with Johnny and the dogs and being able to do stuff with the family and not have to think about those things. And I think that's what business gives you the freedom to do, is to be able to make those decisions, be able to do things, go on holiday in January, do these things. And, I still work when I'm there and do bits, but it gives you the freedom to be able to do those things, to go home to Northern Ireland and work. It gives us that freedom. We can do that. I can go home. We can see my mum. We can see Johnny's mum. We can see, family. That gives us that freedom. And those become really important, I think. Because time is kind of, wow, it just...
I think it's the time thing. I think you get to a point in your life and you look and you go, actually, I think it was Stephen Bartlett says about the chips in how many days. We've got so many thousand days, and actually at our age we've gone past that, over that halfway mark on the average thing. So you go, actually, I've only got this amount of days. So that when it sinks in, actually life is finite. Because we still don't. I think when you're younger, you just think, you're gonna live forever.
Yeah.
But when that lands, and you go, it's like, again, just do things, whatever it is, that light you up, and spend time with the people you love, and live a life true to yourself, right?
Yeah.
That's the ultimate thing. I talk about. I often refer to it on here, the book from Bronnie Ware, like the 5 regrets of the dying. Biggest regret of the dying is I've not lived a life true to myself. You go, like, if I'm not getting up every day and doing things that light me up, and do things and surround myself with the people that I love and who love me, what am I doing?
Yeah. And I think it's true, yeah. And I wouldn't change anything the way it's happened to me. When I look back, people say, would you change it? No, because it made who I am today. And some of the best entrepreneurs started businesses in their 40s. I started my business in my 40s. Could have did it back then? Probably not. Because you brought all of those tools along the way. But listen, there's people that start businesses, amazing businesses now, and they're 18, 19, 20. I think we're in a very different world, and you can learn so much. But for me, I don't think that was where.
I agree with that. I agree, because I often look back and if only entrepreneurship was a thing when I was at 16, and when I did quit and I couldn't become a footballer, I'd have started a business back then. But would I? Because would I have had any of the skill? Maybe I'd have failed and I'd have learnt some stuff on the way at an early age. And maybe I'd have been further down that route. Now, maybe not. I might have just hated it so much and gone and you never know. But I really believe that. I think you start on this. I was 30 when I started the whole entrepreneur, my first business. But you sort of think like on that was the right time for me. I was ready, and I failed that, and I learned loads. And you know what I mean. But you go, I do think that it's so much of. And you look at listening to your story, you look at your business now, it's based on the experience that you've got through the corporate side of stuff, right? You've taken all of those lessons that you've learned and you've packaged it into
and I've loved every minute of it, all the people I've met along the way. And I'm still friends with a lot of people from every company I've worked with. There's people that come into your life and just, light you up. And, they come into your life for a reason. Yeah. And, I love it. I look back with full memories in every single one. Even, the Co-op Bank, I loved it. 9 years in Brighton and looking after the branches in the South Coast. I loved every single minute of it. And Autosmart, loved loads of bits, really full memories of launching their big products at conference and all of these things. It was an amazing time, and I loved every single minute of it. And I think that's when it was just the right time for me. I don't know what happened, but just something. I think COVID brought a lot of change for everyone. And I think, probably came at the right time for me because it made me think, actually, what is it I want to do? And then with that push from Johnny, and this is where we are, and, we've now got Go Succeed.
Amazing. It's been so, like I said, I love just being in your company, just like, just ooze it, infectious enthusiasm. I love it. But just actually listening to your story and the process, and like, I can't, for me as a business owner, as an individual, thinking about the things and many changes I've got to make, but I'm sure so many listeners are on that path, and I guess I urge people to reach out and speak to you, just because I think actually that it's so logical, the stuff that you talk about, and I think people need to view their business. And like you said, many of your clients that I know have gone on and they are succeeding in their flight, you know, and which is incredible. I'm keen a couple of things as we're coming towards the end. One, if you go back and talk to Gary at 18, with all the stuff that you've learned, what advice would you give him?
Just keep following the path. Yeah, if I would go back, I think would I change anything? No. I think the advice is keep doing it. Sometimes it was hard. I suppose the biggest thing for me was when I go back, I suppose Gary at 18, it's going to work out all right. Because back then, I wasn't out as being gay. It was really hard in Northern Ireland. I never really seen where I was going to fit in. So kind of, in some ways, when I worked at McDonald's then, that was my escape. And maybe that was, from, who I really was. So kind of going back then, it's all going to work out okay. Because sometimes I couldn't see that, because, LGBTQ, all of that wasn't a thing in Northern Ireland, right? People were, fighting and, all of that was all about religion. Even, in the early 2000s, it was all about that. That wasn't really a big thing in Northern Ireland. No one was talking about it. And that was kind of always the thing in the back of my mind, I am different. Why am I different? I suppose I escaped by going into that career. So if I was to go back and say to my 18-year-old self, look, it's all going to work out okay. Because I met Johnny in 2004. It's going to be okay, and, it was kind of there was points where I probably thought as a 16-year-old me, what is life for me? Because everyone's like, get married, have kids, go to university, and it was kind of
like... Did you know, like, from a young age, when did you...
Kind of always knew it was a bit different, So, I had girlfriends, when I met someone called Zara, I was with for a few years, who was amazing. And, but I kind of always knew, that was the kind of big thing. I always knew, we didn't break up badly and whatever, and it was really me and Zara. And then I met Johnny. Johnny worked at Argos as a Christmas temp. I was a manager, but that's a story for a different podcast. But
episode 2 coming soon.
Tune in for more. But that was so looking back to that, I suppose that's the bit that, and it was kind of frightening because telling my parents how they're going to take it. You never know. Both our parents have been amazing. Our grandparents, everyone's been amazing. Being in our wedding, we got married in Brighton in 2014, being together 20 years. So looking back, probably then I couldn't see where I am today. Not even about the business person, about who I am and where I'm living and living in Brighton. Wow, I never thought that would ever happen. I came here for a year with the Co-op Bank and I haven't left. So those
happens
are
to
the
a lot of
big-
people, right?
Yeah, it does. Because Johnny was in London with Burby. That was where we were going to move. I came here because they relocated me, gave me a relocation package. My contract was to stay here for a year, and then actually we ended up loving it and staying here. And I stayed in the Co-op Bank down here for, 5 years. But yeah, looking back to the 18-year-old self, it's all going to be okay, because actually there was times where it was kind of all of that thing. And I think going to London and stuff was kind of understanding, wow, there is a different world out there, when I went to London with McDonald's and stuff. But it was really tough. There was those points where it was really tough. I did get a bit lost along the way.
Yeah. And I think that, I guess that's a good piece of art. And I'm keen to just tap into that feeling of loss, especially I guess in people around our age group. You get to that point, and you do sometimes in your early 20s. You can feel a bit lost.
Mm-hmm.
Get to that, this they call it a midlife crisis, whatever that is. But you can feel a bit lost. And I guess what would you say to people listening there that are maybe feeling that bit lost? What would you?
I say just believe in yourself. It is going to work out. It's going to be okay. Because for me it was kind of tough. I was working at McDonald's, had a great career, but I did fall in with some, not great people as well along the way, clubbing and doing lots of things and alcohol and drugs and all of that. And I can reflect on that and say, look, I did that, but it was because I was lost. Yeah, I met some great people along the way, Zara and then Johnny, and that's who shaped who I am. Because there was, let's be honest, I worked in McDonald's, but there was some dark days, and there was dark days where you think, actually, who am I? What am I? You do feel a bit trapped in life. This isn't, because there wasn't that. Not, I suppose, like you say, in Brighton today, you can be who you want. Kids can grow up. It's amazing. I love it, right? Because you can be who you want and do all of that. It wasn't like that, in the late 90s in Northern Ireland at all. It was kind of difficult. So, when I was 18, that I couldn't see a life of being married, being queer, being LGBTQ, being married to Johnny. I couldn't see, that life really. I didn't see that life. I didn't know where I was going to end up really.
And that's again, I guess back to the point I'm making. If the biggest regret of dying is that we've not lived a life true to ourselves, and when you're at that age thinking, I know. You're starting to question, or you look at, I'm different, I am this way, and you're not, then that's not living in alignment with who you actually are. That's where,
and I always knew it. I probably knew it from going through school, secondary school. I always knew it,
Sure.
It was kind of always that thing. I didn't always fit in with the guys that played football. I didn't fit in. There was certain friends that I didn't fit in. It was very different. I love music. I love, it didn't fit in. And it was very different back then, I think. I suppose looking back, that's what I tell. It's all going to work out all right. Right. And, sometimes you don't think it is, but just keep believing and do it.
Amazing. Mate, listen, it's been an absolutely fascinating conversation. I've enjoyed every second of it. Thank you so much and continuing just to, both you and Johnny, like you said, fun along the way and the joy. Yeah. Both of you in a room, the amount of joy and fun that you bring to and the enthusiasm you bring to the room is incredible. So thank you. Keep doing that, please. Keep doing that. But I guess just always, obviously you've been one of our partners for a long time, and you've come to our top table events, and we've sat around, and this is the question I do like to ask one of our conversation cards. So I'm going to just finish off with this one, which may allude to some of the stuff, the advice you'd give to your 18-year-old self. But let's see. So you're on your deathbed. You leave one life lesson. What is that?
My one life lesson, and it kind of does link back, but time is the biggest commodity in the world. It's the most richest currency you can ever have. You can lose all the money in the world, you can get it back, but you can't get back time. And you've just got to remember that. Time is so important, and spend it well. And that's how you want to be remembered, right? So use your time to be remembered well, have fun, do what you love, and have fun along the way. That is for me. Someone said that to me, and I always remember that. Time is the biggest, the richest currency in the world. It's something you can't get back. You can lose all the money in the world, and you can get it back, but you can't lose all the time in the world and get it back. And I think it's really kind of, if someone said to you, I've seen some of these people go out and say, if I can give you, $10 million today, but you're going to die next week, would you take it? No, you wouldn't. And that, I think that is something that you need to remember, and some people get lost in that. In the world that we are living now, you know, it's all about money, money, money. But think about it. If someone said to you, you know, those words, if I was to give you £10 million, but you won't be here next week, would you take it? No, you wouldn't. So time is much more valuable than all the money in the world.
What an absolutely brilliant way to finish, mate. Honestly, thank you so much. It's been
thank you.
Brilliant conversation. Like I said, I've loved every scene. I can't wait to release this episode. It's just, as you've got the gold mine, there's loads of gold nuggets in it, right? There's loads of gold nuggets. So hopefully the listeners have got as much out of it as I have. So, mate, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that, as they say, is a wrap.